long time ago, in a kingdom far away. It wasn't a very big kingdom, only about the size of a postage stamp, kind you could fit in a valley between two mountains. Well, anyway, one day a dragon flew into town. He wasn't your ordinary, everyday fire breathing dragon. Oh no, this dragon liked to play practical jokes. If somebody was walking down the street with an armload of packages, that dragon would flip the manhole cover off in front of them. Plop, down they would go. He turned all the one-way street signs around in the kingdom, and if some woman would put a pie out to cool on her windowsill, it'd be gone. But the people, they were outraged, and they went to the king. They said something has to be done about this. The king thought about it and says, I don't want anything to do with a dragon. Till the next day. The king got up from his bed, and he made his way to the royal sock closet. 735 socks and not a matching one in the lot. Well, he put on one green sock and one red sock, and he hobbled on down to the royal pool room. Figured he'd shoot some pool to sort of simmer his nerves down. To his shock and dismay, there was no cue ball. What kind of game of pool can you shoot without a cue ball? Well, the king took a pool cue in his hand, marched into the throne room. It's like a scepter. Sat down in the throne next to the queen. And he called for his royal magician. Yes, your majesty, what can I do for you? The king said, there's a dragon that's creating havoc in the kingdom. Get rid of him. Yes, your majesty, but somebody took my magic book. Do it anyway, said the king. Well, the magician got out a tripod, and he put exotic woods and poured over it strange filters, and he said some magic words. Poof! The queen, sitting next to the king, turned into a rose bush. The magician, he offered to turn the queen back. The king said, no, thank you. So he summoned his royal herald and told him to go out and make the announcement that every man, woman, and child in the kingdom, every beau and bravo, every knick and knave was to show up at the back porch of the castle in 15 minutes. Now, around the corner from the castle, there lived a brave little tailor. Maybe you've heard of him? Well, the tailor, he had 3 sons. He had Will, and he had Tom, and he had Jack. Jack was the youngest of the 3 sons, and, well, the least of them, but the tailor loved him the best. They all gathered at the back porch of the castle, every beau and bravo, every knick and knave, all the men, women, and children, to hear what the king had to say. Well, the king says there's a pesky, a practical joking dragon, living in the kingdom, and I will give half of my kingdom and my daughter's hand in marriage to whoever slays the dragon. Well, the princess, she was real pretty, and all the beaux and bravos and knights and knaves, they all gathered around the princess, them and Will and Tom too. Jack, he could see he wasn't going to get too close to the princess, so he went over and watered the queen. Well, pretty soon, people started clearing out. All the beaux and the bravos, the knicks and knaves, they all headed up the hill to the cave where the dragon lived. But none of them came back. Will, the oldest of the tailor's 3 sons, he says, Pop, I'm going to go out and slay the dragon. Well, says the tailor, promise me one thing. What's that, Pop? He says, when you meet the dragon, I want you to say these magic words. What's that, Pop? Dragon, dragon, meet your bane. The king sent me to see you slain. Can you say that? Dragon, dragon, meet your bane. The king sent me to see you slain. Willie started laughing. He says, that's the funniest thing I ever heard, Pop. And he went out, and he got a big old sword and a suit of armor, and hopped on the horse, and he rode up the mountainside to the dragon's lair. When he got there, did he say the magic words like his papa told him? No, he did not. He just rode right in there, and there he saw a pile of gold and silver, gems and jewels, cups and rings. Something smelled like dirty socks, too. But what he didn't see was there above the door lintel was the dragon. The dragon jumped down. He grabbed up Will. Look, 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 look. He swallowed him whole. He threw the horse in the freezer for a snack later on. Meanwhile, back down in town, Tom, the second of the three sons, he says, Pop, he says, I'm going to go out, slay the dragon, marry the princess. The tailor didn't like it much, but he said, promise me one thing. What's that, Pop? He says, when you go out to see the dragon, to slay the dragon, he says, I want you to say these magic words. What's that, Pop? Dragon, dragon, meet your bane. The king sent me to see you slain. Well, Tommy started laughing. He says, Pop, he says, I don't know. We might have to move you into an old folks' home. Well, Tom, he wasn't no knight or nothing. He was one of them rastlers with the long, blonde, flowing hair. He hopped on his motorcycle and he rode on up to the dragon's lair. When he got there, did he say the magic words like his papa told him? No, not Tom. He just burst right in the door, and there he saw a pile of gold and silver, gems and jewels, cups and rings. Still didn't smell very good. But what he didn't see was over the door lintel was the dragon. The dragon jumped down, grabbed up Tom, threw him up in the air, swallowed him whole. Threw the motorcycle on the pile with the rest of the loot. Meanwhile, back down in the town, Jack was all alone. He had nobody to play with. The town was just about empty. Looked like a ghost town. He says, Papa, he says, there's nobody to play with. I guess I'm going to have to go slay the dragon. The tailor was not happy about this at all. And he said, son, he says, when you go to slay the dragon, promise me one thing. What's that, Pop? He says, when you meet the dragon, say these magic words. What's that, Pop? Do you remember the magic words? Dragon, dragon, meet your bane. The king sent me to see you slain. Jackie started laughing. Well, he and his papa, they looked around. He didn't have no armor, so they put a little stew pot on his head, give him a garbage can lid as a shield. The tailor did have a big old sword that he got from some giant a long time ago. It was so big that, well, when they put Jack on a donkey there to head up to the dragon's lair, the sword dragged in the ground behind him. Sort of made a big old hole in the ground, a furrow. That's where they get that saying, turning your swords into plowshares. Well, anyway, he got up to the dragon's lair. Did he say the words that his daddy told him? You bet he did. What were the words that his papa told him? That's right. Dragon, dragon, meet your bane. The king sent me to see you slain. When the dragon heard this, his ears perked right up. He looked out the door just in time to see poor Jack tumbling off the back of the donkey. The dragon started laughing, rolling on the ground. Jack, he got up there and he picked up the sword. It was so heavy he had to flip it over. But the dragon, he's just laughing on the ground so hard looking at Jack. Oh, there's big crocodile tears coming down his face. Jack flipped the sword over, boom, making his way slowly towards the dragon. Up and over, boom. The dragon's still laughing. Up goes the sword, boom. Cut the dragon's head right clean off. Well, when he did, people started climbing out of the dragon's belly. The dragon had terrible eating habits, didn't chew before he swallowed. Out come all the beaux and bravos and knights and knaves, Will and Tom too. Well, they gathered up all the treasure, the gold and silver, the gems and jewels, the cups and rings, a cue ball, bunch of dirty socks. And they took the dragon and Jack on their shoulders back down to see the king, took the dragon's head with him. Well, when the king saw Jack coming into town with, the dragon's head, he was overjoyed. He brought out his daughter there, and, introduced her to Jack. Well, Jack, he didn't know quite what to say, but the last I heard, him and the princess were doing pretty good. Oh, yeah, the queen. When last we saw the queen, she was a rose bush sitting by the king's side. The magician had his magic book back, and he said the magic words, and poof, the queen turned back to her normal self. She looked at that pile of 734 dirty socks she was expected to clean, and she had the magician turn her back into a rose bush. And that is the story of Dragon.